A 2-week trip to Tanzania. I recently went to Tanzania for 2 weeks with Tearfund, flying out on Friday 31st of August 2018 and arriving back at Heathrow on Sunday 16th of September. It was quite a long flight, 18 hours I think, including transit time in Istanbul and Dar es Salaam, which is about half as much again as a direct flight to Bangkok, if not more. It is said that there was once a notice in an airport in English somewhere which said, "We take your luggage and send it in all directions," and I had experience of this because when we got to Dar es Salaam my luggage failed to turn up. Fortunately, it was not lost completely. It caught up with me on Monday morning, but since I had no spare clothes in my cabin luggage apart from a Tearfund t-shirt, I had to survive until then without a change of clothes. Worse still, they confiscated my deodorant at Heathrow. I think it's classified as a liquid or something. I took lots of photos while in Tanzania, and I have used 85 of them to make a PowerPoint presentation. Before showing them to you, I'd like to give you a quick geography lesson, just in case your geography is as bad as mine. I got grade 8 when I did O-level. As you might be able to see, if you look on a map, Mozambique is to the southeast of Tanzania, and Malawi and Zambia to the southwest, west of Lake Malawi. All along the west side we have the Democratic Republic of the Congo, though the cynic might say any country with democratic in the title isn't. It certainly seems to have its problems. The conflict in Congo was said a few years ago to be one of the bloodiest since World War II, and the people traumatized. Ebola keeps showing up. Although it has immense economic resources, it has been ruined by civil war and corruption. Sudan, of course, is to the north, on the other side of Uganda. If anyone wants to find out more about Sudan, there's an Amnesty report about it online, and there's also a BBC report about Malawi online, and a 5-year-old report asking why Zambia is so poor. And then we've got, of course, Somalia and Ethiopia to the northeast of Tanzania on the other side of Kenya. So obviously Kenya is to the northeast of Tanzania, and there's an Amnesty report about Kenya online as well. Uganda is to the northwest or north-northwest of Tanzania, and it used to have terrible problems, as I'm sure you know, from the Lord's Resistance Army. I don't know whether it still has those problems now, but in 2016, under US pressure, the Sudan government cut off assistance to the LRA, so perhaps things have improved. And then there's Rwanda to the northwest of Tanzania. There's a BBC report about Rwanda online as well. Burundi is also to the northwest and having really big problems at the moment, with hospitals barely functioning, 65% of the population below the poverty level, and children suffering from malnutrition and things like that due to political problems, in quite a bad way by the sound of it. When we first flew to Tanzania, of course, we landed in Dar es Salaam before flying to Mwanza in the far north on the shores of Lake Victoria. Mwanza is nearly 700 miles from Dar es Salaam, and it might take about 19 hours by road. For those of you listening or watching in the UK, it's slightly further than from London to John O'Groats. Then we went by road to Musoma, which is less than 140 miles and only takes 4 hours, if only is the right word. If you look at a map, it will probably look quite close. We were driven by someone from the Africa Inland Church, Tearfund's partner in this region. There were 5 other people in the team, all much younger than me. The hotel we were at much of the time in Musoma was very near Lake Victoria. Here it is in this photograph, with most of the team members in the foreground. And here they are going into the entrance of the hotel. We arrived on Saturday and went to a church in Musoma the following day. There was great fervour in the church and very loud singing. I don't think the singing group at the front needed their microphones. We are weak and compromising. in the church in this country by comparison, or many of us anyway. The sermon was entitled Kingdom Mathematics. Here are various people holding up placards representing a mathematical calculation. Various Bible passages were referred to which contain numbers such as the feeding of the 5,000, the parable of the talents, etc. On Sunday afternoon there was a scheduling meeting in the hotel where we found out what was going to happen during our stay. And this is the vehicle we travelled about in. There are only good roads between major towns and cities, in Tanzania, so having a four-wheel drive vehicle is quite useful. On Monday we went to a school in a remote area about an hour's drive from the nearest metalled road. We stayed overnight. You can see from the photo that our accommodation was somewhat basic. We met with the teachers in the staff room and introduced ourselves. And this is a notice board in the staff room. In the afternoon we played frisbees with the children. Here they are getting into a circle, ready to play. Some of the children attached themselves to me. Being much older than the other volunteers, my nickname was Barbie, which is Swahili for grandfather. And in this photo I think they're getting water for washing. Here is Lucy playing Ring a Ring of Roses with the children. One of the children decided he'd like to try on my hat. There were quite a few mosquitoes about, so he certainly needed mosquito nets. In this photo I think the children were getting drinks or food from a hatch. This was on the Tuesday. In the morning I taught 2 RE lessons, which was probably a bit difficult for the children being taught in a foreign language, but there was a Tanzanian man there as well to help explain things. The other volunteers taught other subjects such as science. Then in the afternoon, as this photo shows, James organised a game of football, while the female volunteers organised games with the girls. In this photo there is a game with a skipping rope and I think a ball game in the foreground. On Tuesday night we were back at our hotel in Musoma, and then on the Wednesday we were off again, but had to stop for an hour on the way because the president was passing by. His name includes the word pombe, which means alcohol in Swahili, which doesn't sound good. See Proverbs chapter 31 verses 4 and 5 for more on that. While we were stopped we went for a little walk and saw these birds, but I don't know what they are called. Eventually we arrived at a church in another remote area, also about an hour from the nearest metalled road, and received a most amazing greeting from a procession of singing and dancing church members. Now there's an idea for the church in this country when thinking about welcome. They did have something to sing and dance about, because this well was installed a year ago, a year before I went there. As you might know, getting water is often a major problem in poor countries, with girls missing out on their education because they have to walk miles to get water each day. How would we feel if we had to walk several miles to get water? For some reason, many of these photos ended up upside down when I transferred them to the computer. My mobile phone must have thought I'd gone to Australia. And when I flipped them the right way out, the lettering ended up back to front, so you either have to stand on your head to read it or hold a mirror up to it. This church did a lot of singing and dancing, as this photo shows. And this photo shows us with them as we were about to leave. On Thursday the 6th of September we started off by visiting the Africa Inland Church offices in Musoma. Here is Joel, one of the people working there. And this notice on the office wall shows some more of the people in the Africa Inland Church. Here is a vehicle belonging to the agricultural project. Next we went to the Africa Inland Church dispensary. Here are some of the workers in the dispensary. And this is a notice in the dispensary. The definition of suture is a stitch or row of stitches holding together the edges of a wound or surgical incision. Maybe you didn't know that if, like me, you're not a medical expert. Near the bottom it says, handle sutures with care, After all, life depends on a slender strand. This is the specimen collection room. I think this has to do with laboratory test results. It is the process of obtaining tissue or fluids for laboratory analysis, which gives vital information about a patient's health. Here is where various medicines are stored. Next, we visited an HIV group. Tanzania faces a mature generalized HIV epidemic. In 2011, an estimated 1.6 million Tanzanians were living with HIV oblique AIDS, with 1.3 million being age 15 or older. Based on 2011 data, AIDS has resulted in an estimated 1.3 million orphan children. There are many places in the Bible where God shows his concern for the fatherless. The population of Tanzania is, I think, something like 60 million. In 1963 it was only 11 million. The average life expectancy in Tanzania is, I think, something like 62 for men and 65 for women. Compare that to the UK, where it is about 79 for men and 83 for women. Here is a chart of medicinal plants. Next, we went to the agricultural project. This notice relates to a kitchen garden. In this photo, as you see, there is poultry. And this is a biogas plant. You might know that biogas is a renewable energy source. It refers to a mixture of different gases produced by the breakdown of organic matter in the absence of oxygen. It can be produced from raw materials such as agricultural waste, manure, municipal waste, plant material, sewage, green waste or food waste. Here are some rabbits, as you see, and pigs. Here is Grevilla robusta, otherwise known as southern silky oak. It is hardy and fast growing. This is amarula. A cream liqueur is made from it. Africa's elephants are said to walk miles to feast on the sun-ripened marullas. The marula fruit is considered one of Africa's botanical treasures. This is silverleaf, a large trailing perennial legume. I only discovered this recently, but there is a website called Feedipedia, which is an animal feed resources information system. Here are bananas, which are said to benefit your mood, skin, bones, eyes, diet, heart and digestive health, and to be a great source of essential vitamins, a staple food for millions, packed with nutrients, pre-packaged in their own yellow jackets. They may help to lower blood pressure and reduce risks of developing cancer and asthma, according to Medical News Today. They are grown in at least 107 countries. And here is green tomato, which is the name of an environmentally friendly London-based taxi service as well as a plant. This is the maize plot. Maize is the third most important cereal crop in the world. However, not much is eaten directly by humans. Here are climbing beans. For those of you interested in gardening, climbing French beans are easy to grow and give a superb yield for the small amount of effort needed to produce them. Climbing and runner beans give a garden structure and colour with their red or white flowers and their towers of greenery. Even in that climate they seem to need greenhouses. In September the minimum temperature averages 20 degrees centigrade and the maximum 28. Here is sorghum, Africa's contribution to the world's top crops. Primarily a human food product in Africa, in the US used mainly for livestock feed and a growing number of ethanol plants. It is commonly eaten with all its outer layers, thereby retaining the majority of its nutrients. We did some practical tasks while we were there. Here we are shelling beans. And here we are planting trees, that is wrapping compacted soil in plastic ready for a seed to be placed in it. One of the team members was from the Coptic Orthodox Church. Her parents were from Egypt, so we visited the Coptic Church in Musoma. I understand it was started by Mark in AD 42, so one of the most ancient churches in the world. I understand there's still a Holy See of St. Mark today in Egypt. From the Saturday to the Tuesday, we were on Ukerewe Island on Lake Victoria. There are more than 3,000 islands on Lake Victoria, many of which are inhabited. The lake's surface is about 3,700 feet above sea level, about 50 metres higher than Snowdon in Wales. Ukerewe is the largest island in Lake Victoria, more than 30 miles long and about 15 or 20 miles wide. The place on the mainland where we caught the ferry, which fortunately didn't capsize, unlike a certain ferry that we've all heard about recently, quite a disaster, that place is called Kisoya. We had to wait more than 2 hours for the ferry, so while we were waiting we visited some churches there. This is the Lutheran Church. The Lutheran Church in Tanzania is one of the largest Lutheran denominations in the world, with more than 6 million members, only 500,000 in 1963. So it has multiplied by 12 in 5 years, whereas the population in general has only multiplied by about 5.5. And there we have the ferry. That is our room. That is the room where we stayed on Ukerewe Island. I think you can see it's not exactly a 5-star hotel. We were staying a few hundred yards from a church. We sang in the service on Sunday morning, as you can see in that photo. And 3 of us shared in preaching the sermon. There I am doing my part of it, with a man called Jeremiah translating. And there I am again. The service was about 3 hours long. The washing facilities were fairly basic. The tap didn't work. We used water from tubs. There was an unlighted outside toilet. On Sunday afternoon we went to a museum. However, it wasn't a museum in the sense that we normally understand the term. Not indoors, no exhibits or artifacts. However, there was history associated with the place. That lady was telling us about it. One could also climb up to the top of the museum and have a nice view. On Monday morning we had a short walk from where we were staying to a field where we dug holes for planting trees, one of the few occasions when they made us do hard work. And there we are, planting young trees in the holes. Trees had been grown in compacted soil wrapped in plastic until they were more than 1 foot in length, and we planted them. There's Emmanuel, our driver, planting his tree. And there I am planting a tree. According to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, an estimated 18 million acres, 7.3 million hectares of forest, which is roughly the size of the country of Panama, are lost each year. The most dramatic impact is the loss of habitat for millions of species. 80% of Earth's land animals and plants live in forests, and many cannot survive the deforestation that destroys their homes. Deforestation also drives climate change, so says National Geographic. There is a dispensary on Ukerewe Island. On Monday afternoon we went to a CCMP meeting, which stands for Church and Community Mobilization Program. The Africa Indian Church helps a lot of people because they can receive very useful training and take out loans. However, because resources are limited, they may sometimes have to wait some time for a loan, and they may have to travel far to get water or to go to school or a hospital. The local hospital may have no electricity supply, which makes it difficult to store medicines, that is, no refrigeration. We also looked at beehives nearby. And there is our driver loading up to go back to the mainland. You can see pillows in the back. We had to take pillows from the hotel in Musoma to the island. Back in Musoma, we were put up in another hotel. As you can see, it's a bit more luxurious than the accommodation on Ukerewe. Near the hotel there were these large animals. I'm not sure what it is. Is it a large rat? On Wednesday the 12th we went back to the agricultural project and used hand cutters to cut shrubs to provide foliage for animal feed. There is the cut foliage. Another task was raking up leaves and carting them away in a wheelbarrow. Some of the team did seed planting in the compacted soil wrapped in plastic. Some of us had a go at milking cows. The Africa Inland Church encourages poor farmers to have a different breed of cow from the local one, which has a much higher milk yield. On the Thursday we went to the Serengeti National Park, which is similar in size to Burundi or Rwanda. That's the hippo pool. Hippos are said to be one of the most aggressive animals on earth, but we didn't have any problem with them when we were there. You may be able to see elephants in that photo. According to The Guardian, ivory poaching is the most immediate urgent threat to Africa's elephants, but even if that can be tackled, they will have to fight humans for land, food and water. In Garamba National Park in the Democratic Republic of Congo, 13 park rangers have been killed in the past 3 years, and 256 elephants have been taken for their tusks. And these days the poachers often arrive in uniform with an arsenal of weapons to match. There we have giraffes, the tallest land animals. A giraffe could look into a second-story window without even having to stand on its tiptoes. Giraffes are becoming increasingly more vulnerable as exploitation, agricultural expansion and habitat fragmentation continues. If you'll excuse the pun, to save giraffes we may need to stick our necks out. I don't know whether you can see the deer in that photo. We usually couldn't get close enough for a decent photo. Not as large as Scotland's majestic red deer, which is our largest wild land mammal here in the UK and one of our most impressive wildlife spectacles. And there is a herd of wildebeest. Its annual migration is considered one of the greatest wildlife spectacles on earth. Every year 1.2 million blue wildebeest migrate across East Africa, one of Africa's most breathtaking experiences. The Friday evening was our last evening in Musoma. I was given this very nice Tanzanian shirt as a present. On the Saturday we went to the airport in Mwanza but got there early so we had time to look around. It is also on the shores of Lake Victoria. Incidentally, Lake Victoria is larger than Rwanda and Burundi put together. Mwanza is known for unusual rock formations, as you can see in this lakeside photo. It is Tanzania's second largest city with a population of over 850,000. There are also boulders high up as well in the hilly parts of the city. Although I didn't feel that this trip was nearly as exciting as a trip to Mexico, which someone that I've heard about made recently, where over 500 people made commitments to follow Jesus and there were many healings as well, I still felt that it was a great privilege to be allowed to preach in church and to take 2 RE classes. It was also good to find out how poor people are being helped firsthand and what problems they still have. I don't suppose we did anything too earth-shaking in 2 weeks, but then sometimes missionaries work for 20 years and nothing much seems to happen. But one of the pleasures of such a trip is telling people about it once I have come back. So thanks very much for listening. And one way which you can help people in poor countries, if you'd like to do that, is to see my website www.bobscharitablestore.com, where I sell t-shirts and other garments for charitable purposes, and any profit that I would have made from it gets given to various Christian charities. So that could be a way of helping poor people and helping other Christian organisations doing various different things, as well as being a good means of evangelism. So you're welcome to check that out if you wish. And thanks very much again for watching this video.